Here on Politics Now, we're going to take a look at the homelessness issue in Clark County in the city of Las Vegas. Merideth Spriggs is here with Caridad to talk about what is happening as we move beyond the pandemic to some extent. That doesn't mean certainly the issue of homelessness, of low-income housing has gone away. In fact, perhaps it's gotten even more challenging. So let's just start, if we can, Merideth, by talking about what is the situation on the street right now? What are you seeing firsthand in our community?
Thank you for having me on.
Of course.
And full disclosure, we used to be a street outreach agency, and we switched and now do gardening. So we are not on the streets every day. My experience with street homelessness currently as an organization is what we see in the downtown alley, which is off 6th and Carson. And I also am a downtown resident. So it's really kind of my little pocket of the world, and what I see is what I know. So what we're seeing is a big increase in visible street homeless, and I always judge it by the time of the month. So I'm seeing them at the beginning of the month, and traditionally that's been when people go indoors, they get their pay, whatever. So we're still seeing that no break at the beginning of the month, and then an uptick in the substance abuse is what we've just seen in our little pocket. And that isn't to say like all homeless are doing
No, of course not.
drugs, but it's just more visible than I feel like in your face than it's been traditionally.
Now, I mean, there's an anecdotal aspect to it, but there's also just I guess the reality on the street. And I'm wondering if in your discussions and what you're seeing, how much the pandemic has played into what we're seeing in terms of folks just not being able to afford places to live, or be able to find work to stay in shelter, or find a shelter that's available for them.
It's very interesting. We were the actually only organization in the initial shutdown that was going out and checking on folks. And so people didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know how to access services. And now that things have opened, certain agencies aren't even fully opened for appointments, Social Security, for example. So if people have identity stolen, which you need to get into a place to rent, you can't get that now because you can't just say walk in. Or if you go to the DMV, what we've been doing to help our clients is we get in line at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning so we can get in the building to get their ID that day.
To hold their hand sort of almost through the process.
Well, they meet us at 8 because
Okay.
that's when they open. And then they get in because there are no appointments right now at the DMV till later on in the fall. And so, yeah, what does one do if you can't get your ID and you can't access those resources? You're just stuck in this never-ending loop of homelessness.
Yeah, if you have no ID, you can't get a job, bank situations, whatever the case may be. You know, even during the pandemic, there were efforts made, the city, the county, and other organizations to expand. There was they set up that area right by Cashman Field.
The tent?
Yeah, the tent sort of area there. So it seemed like there were some good faith efforts at that time. How much of that, from what you're seeing, is following through now? Is there still that push, that effort on a government level or on a nonprofit level by other organizations to address this issue?
Absolutely, and I do know the tent, that was a big debacle, you know, that made worldwide press. Is kind of and people mocked it, but something that people didn't know on the back end, a lot of what we got was COVID CARES funding. So it was basic needs assistance funding through the feds, and that was a great surge into our community. Lots of organizations got it, we got it, and we're able to expand through it. But we couldn't put it towards permanent housing or permanent structures. So that was unfortunately a federal hang-up. So even though all that money came through, then other programming we've had to supplement to keep it going or to create something more permanent for our clients. So that has been the struggle for the government entities. Okay, now what? And so there have been other monies like the marijuana funds to go into the community that will help with that. And so I know the county and the city are being proactive to try to figure out, okay, now what's the next step? We got this money, we can't keep it. Our time just ran out actually on the 30th of June. So we're doing our reporting deadline, but all pencils down, we can't spend any more money. Now what do we do?
Seems like a lot of red tape for something that has been an issue for a long time in the city.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and this community as a whole, and it's not just our community, many other communities struggle with this too, is that you don't have community buy-in. And the communities that successfully end homelessness are where they have buy-in from the private sector and the faith sector. Here, we don't really see that as much, and so what we have is the little bit that our government can give us from the federal level on down, and so that just isn't ever going to be enough. Like, we still are always going to have a gap.
before the pandemic, the city passed some controversial ordinances, which I know you were involved in fighting against, with regards to camping on the streets, issues of homelessness, sleeping on sidewalks, and so forth. They passed. The impression I got from talking with folks at City Hall, at least, is that the pandemic overshadowed a lot of that, and their priorities were elsewhere.
Absolutely.
What is happening on the ground from that level? Are those rules actually still being enforced? Are you speaking with folks that live on the street that are homeless, that are dealing with this on a semi-regular basis? And what are their concerns?
We are, and what we're seeing is it's getting harder for us to find people. The handful of people that we have that are literally street homeless that we're case managing, they'll get rousted, or they'll get moved, or they'll get threatened with citations, and so then they move to areas, and so then we can't find them, or they get arrested and we can't find them. So it's really hard to get things done when people are in jail, and unfortunately this is another red tape loophole thing that we have going on with the feds. If someone is in jail over 45 days, they get taken off the community housing list. So you basically, by throwing people in jail, then are disqualifying them for housing if it's for an extended jail stay. So it's really hard. It's yeah.
Well, when I've spoken with, whether it's law enforcement, city officials, the impression I've gotten is that they aren't really enforcing it. They're threatening to enforce it. Is that, in your opinion anyway, the best way to go about this in terms of trying to motivate people who are living on the street, who don't have a home or whatever the case may be, to get assistance? I
always say we've failed if law enforcement is doing our housing or threatening to do, you do this or else. And if all you have in your tool belt is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So they are law enforcement. They are doing what they are told to be. They are not homeless service providers. I say it's not working. We can see it's not working. If you look out on the streets, anybody can see it's not working. If you threaten people, they're just going to run away. That's not a good option. So as homeless providers, I also own this, we failed too. Because if we're here, that means we haven't come up with better solutions. We haven't created more housing. And they're just doing basically a knee-jerk reaction to what the community is calling for, which is, hey, get these people out of here.
Now, you mentioned initially, you were hinting at the efforts by governments to use some of the federal funding, and I understand those are discussions that are ongoing, kind of getting off the ground at a city and county level to use this federal money to help. Where is the best place, in your opinion, to put that money to do the best good? The most good.
Housing and transitional housing.
But that's a long-term fix. I mean, is there a short-term solution that can be done that would alleviate some of the pressure?
I can't really think of any.
No, just
because
build more homes.
Because what we've done, or just work with landlords. Right now, also affordable housing is a thing.
Yeah.
It used to be when I had clients coming in that had a fixed income of $733 a month, they could find a place even in downtown. Now that's next to impossible, and it's getting more competitive for renters as homes are going away. So it's just hard to even rent now. So how are people to find that? So maybe working with landlords to get a master lease would be great for now, and you could even, I know some of, I want to say it was WellCare. WellCare had a master lease on an old Super 8 in town, so they had COVID rooms for those at risk, and so they could put them in there. So those are hotel rooms that have been repurposed. They have a master lease with the main agency. They case manage. They make sure everything is good, and that's what they did here. In LA, they called it Project Room Key. They did the same thing. Put people in hotel rooms, case manage them, and then that gave them kind of respite until they could find housing so they weren't out on the streets.
You were talking about gardening. Tell us quickly, the viewers, about Caridad Gardens and what that is and how that helps.
Sure. I always want everybody to come there. But so I'm really excited, and I'm so thankful. Clark County was administering the grant. They picked us to get more funds. So we are expanding. So we currently have a farm operation. It's an indoor hydroponic farm. Anybody can come down and take a peek at it if you want. Just let us know. But it's at 11th and Fremont, so at the back of the bunkhouse lot, or behind 11th Street Records, right across from the Fergusons downtown. They're off 11th and Fremont. And so we grow produce. Half of it is for Anthem Medicaid members living within a 2-mile radius, because that's a food desert. They get free produce. Anthem tracks their overall health outcomes and metrics. The other half we sell for sale to the bars and the restaurants. So your mint, your basil, any of those craft cocktails that you're getting at any of those Fremont East bars, we've probably grown some of that produce for that. And so that covers the cost of who we hire. We hire formerly homeless. Right now we're serving veterans with U.S. Vets. So we hire them. It's a jobs reintegration program. And then we have on Wednesdays, Wellness Wednesday programming. So we have heart math meditation, we have trauma recovery yoga, and we have workouts with our partners at LV Bar Stars. I joke that it's like Disneyland people that work for us, but we know our client base. And this is where I think programming has gone wrong. We've catered it to them. We ask them, what do you want? What do you need? We listen to them, and we literally change it. Each month we have a team meeting where we sit with them. We say, what can we do better? What's not working? What do you want to do? And that's how we go from there. And so that's, I think, the success in our sauces. We just ask and we listen.
And when you talk to them, I guess as a final question, what do they say they need the most? What is their, aside from just a place to live, which is understandable, but what is the biggest complaint, the biggest concern they have on a day-to-day basis?
I think it would blow everybody's mind, but I think the viewers need to hear this. When we did our surveys at the end of the last semester with our practicum student, the #1 thing they needed was community. They were lonely. People in the streets are lonely, people indoors are lonely. What have we done with our society that we are so focused inwardly, we're individualized, you know, we're on our phones, we're segregated, isolated, and now we're dehumanized, now we're otherizing. And I think not only do we need these great programs and the government, it's a combo, right? It's kind of like that Rubik's Cube of what you need, or Tetris, I guess it would be, Tetris, to put it all together to work. So it's, you need the housing, you need the supportive services, you need the support of the government and the private citizens, and you need community to surround them and help them.
Interesting. Merideth, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.